Hello, my name is Orla. Welcome to my channel. In this channel I read short stories for children and adults who are interested. In this video I'll be reading another story from Gods Don't Cry. These stories are by Ellen Ryan, fabulous illustrations from Conor and Merriman. And in this video I'll be reading a great story called about a guy called Fer Maisse. That handsome fella there. He is a wannabe healer. So get cozy, cuddle down, and let's begin. Fer Maisse was the type of god that all others envied. His name alone meant man of beauty, and everyone said he lived up to it, with his bright brown eyes and red hair. The god also had superhuman agility and a reputation for slaying underworld beasts in his spare time. But Maisse wasn't happy. He wished for a different life, one that he never spoke about. Maisse hated killing. Not so long ago he had slain 3 werewolves, and the memory of standing over their bodies still made him sick with shame. Ever since then, the god had nightly dreams of nursing them back to health. This urge to heal was rooted in Maisse's soul, and he imagined what it would be like to save lives instead of taking them. The positive difference he could make to others. Unfortunately, healers were usually the cleverest amongst the gods, but Maisse had never been great with books. He was too proud and too frightened to risk failing, so he stuck with his physical strengths and instead joined the mortal Fianna warriors. Since their leader, Fin McCool, had been killed, Coillte, Finn's right-hand man and best friend, had taken charge. Coillte was a mortal war hero, but was growing old and starting to make mistakes. One day, when the Fianna were practicing their sword fighting in the misty forests of County Monaghan, Coillte accidentally wounded himself with his own sword. The soldier needed medical help, which wasn't easy to find in the depths of the forest. Luckily, Maisse, who was training among the Fianna, had heard of an outer world land not far from where Coillte was injured behind a waterfall. So he scooped up Coillte into his arms and raced through the forest until he found a waterfall half hidden amongst the trees. Colours and lights glittered behind the curtain of water, alerting him to its magic. Maisse pushed through its strong surge to find himself in a castle's open-air courtyard. Heavy wooden doors were set into the courtyard walls, which were built of red jasper. Lush tropical trees lined the perimeter, basking under an everlasting summer sun. Alerted by Maisse's arrival, 9 guards burst through one of the doors and surrounded him, demanding to know his business. My leader needs medical help, Maisse explained. In his arms, Coillte was drifting in and out of consciousness. He is a mortal and in danger of dying from his wounds. Let me through, a woman's voice rang out. A goddess with cropped black hair and steely eyes marched into the courtyard. This is how Maisse first met Flann, a skilled healer who brewed cures for everything from battle injuries to boils, and she was especially respected for healing wounds that no one else could find, those of the heart and the mind. But Maisse had never heard of Flann, so he was surprised when the guards scattered out of the goddess's way and bowed before her. "Are you a healer?" Massey asked. "This man in my arms is Colcha, the great mortal Fina fighter, and I am—" "Take the mortal to the sick bay and be quick about it," Flann told the guards. Immediately they lifted Colcha from Massey's arms and whisked him away. "Who does this goddess think she is?" Massey thought to himself, "interrupting me and shouting orders?" The warrior god puffed out his chest to try and look important. "I am Fer Maisse, monster slayer and Fina soldier. I'll ask one of the guards to return you with a hot drink," Flann told Massey. "And please don't worry, your friend is in good hands." Then she turned and walked after the guards. Massey stood there dumbfounded. He was pleased that Colcha was going to get the care he needed, but he wasn't used to being dismissed this way. It made him feel helpless. So he ran after Flann. "I'd like to stay by Colcha's side. I could be useful." Flann didn't answer. She was already hurrying off to the sick bay, but Massey followed her through the castle, along several corridors and into a bright red room. Sunlight streamed through an open window, shining onto a large crystal table in the middle of the floor. The table was crowded with glass jars, each packed full of herbs. 9 beds made up of silvery rushes lined the walls of the room. As Massey watched, the guards laid Colcha onto one of the beds. Flann went in to examine him, and again Massey trailed behind her. "Will Colcha survive the sword wound?" he asked. "I'll heal that easily," Flann replied. "It's the deeper wounds that I'm worried about." Massey didn't think Colcha had deeper wounds, but still he asked, "What can I do?" For the first time Flann looked directly at Massey. "Well, you're here. If you really want to help, I could do with a new apprentice." Massey was taken aback by her cheek. He was a decorated soldier, not a boy in need of a first job. But something small fluttered in his heart, like an old dream finally waking up. His desire to heal. So Massey found himself nodding. Yes. At once Flann ordered him to fetch healing water from a local well. It took Massey some time to find his way out of the castle, let alone uncover the well. But eventually he made it back with a pail of the special water. "Faster next time, please," Flann said on his return. She was busy tearing herbs at the crystal table. Massey thought he recognised watercress, ribwort, plantain, nettle and scotchgrass, but wasn't entirely confident. He knew he had much to learn. On Flann's instruction, Massey poured the water into a golden basin. Flann sprinkled in the herbs and stirred. Magically the water began to boil. The herbs infused, and Massey felt lightheaded as he inhaled their many peppery, earthy scents. When the potion was ready, Massey and Flann gently lifted Colcha's head and helped him drink it down. The wounded warrior had no sooner swallowed a mouthful than he began to throw up, violently spewing gunge that smelled strangely like bile mixed with porridge. Massey had seen plenty of gore in battle before, but it was the awful sound of retching and the smell that made him want to vomit too. What in the name of gods is that stuff he's throwing up? A toxin that has built up in his body from years of early morning rises, Flann told him with a shrug, as if it should have been obvious. Now give him more. Colcha took another gulp. This time he sprayed odourless red vomit all over the floor. Massey thought he might faint with shock. "Don't worry, it's not blood," Flann said. "It's the result of all the poison-tipped spears that wounded him over the years." On the next sip, Cailse's frail body went into spasms. This comes from every time he pushed his body too hard, running for days on end without rest and fighting battles when he was weary. The spasms stopped as quickly as they had started, and Cailse laid his head back to rest. But when Massey gazed into his leader's eyes, the great warrior still appeared to be broken. There was sadness on his face, and his eyes looked distant, as if he was lost. Flann could see it too. This mortal has an illness of the spirit that we can't see. As his friend, Massey, I need you to find out what has caused it. Only then can I brew the correct blend of herbs to fully heal him. Flann left the room, leaving Massey alone with Cailse, his first ever patient. Massey realised that when he had fought alongside the old warrior in many battles, he knew nothing about Cailse as a man. Massey needed his leader to trust him and open up about what he was feeling. But how could he get a tough Irishman to talk about his emotions when he had never spoken to anyone about his own? Perhaps that was the answer. Massey decided to express his feelings. Sitting on the edge of Cailse's bed, Massey spoke about the first time he'd ever killed a living creature, and how much he hated doing it and hated himself afterwards. He admitted that he had never wanted to be a warrior, and that he had a secret wish to be a healer. But he had been too afraid to try and risk failing. As the god spoke, he realised just how unhappy he had been, and the tears rolled down his face. Cailse placed a rough, calloused hand on one of Massey's, and for some time they sat together in silence. Finally, Cailse spoke to Massey. "Finn McCool was my best friend. All my life I proudly fought by his side. Who am I without him? I don't see the point of winning battles anymore." Massey kissed Cailse on the forehead and told him he was going to help. Then he went to find Flann. "The wound we can't see," he told her. "It's a broken heart." Immediately Flann prepared a new draught and brought it to Cailse. The warrior was sick of all these potions. "Never in attack or combat have I found anything more difficult to do than swallow these drinks. But I will do it all the same." Cailse sipped the liquid and began to retch, coughing up a sticky black substance. "What is this?" Flann answered. "It comes from the sorrow you have for your comrade, your lord and your chief, Finn McCool." Finally, Cailse's hidden wound was purged. But he was still shaken and weak. So Massey took Cailse's arms and guided his patient from bed out of the castle and back to the waterfall. Here, Cailse bathed in the cold water and felt the biting breeze on his skin. At last he was happy and brimming with energy. He still missed Finn, but would honour his fallen comrade by appreciating every new day and protecting his men in battle, who would in turn protect Ireland. But Massey could never go back to war, and he now had the courage to tell Cailse that he was leaving the Fianna. Cailse understood and wished him well. Massey returned to Flan's healing rooms to find her preparing more herbs. "I may not be a great apprentice," he said. "I don't have magical healing powers. Yet it was you who saved Coilcha," Flan said. She pushed a sloshing basin of herb water into his arms. "Now stir this in preparation for your next patient." Massey nodded and happily got to work. The god didn't go on to become a famous healer, nor was he worshipped for his magic, and he was no longer admired as a great warrior or a brave monster slayer. But admiration didn't matter to him. Instead, Massey lived his truth every day by helping to heal gods and mortals, and he was proud of himself. And so he should be. The end. Another great story from Gods Don't Cry. Until the next one. Bye bye.